The Sony A7V just beat the Hassleblad X2D2 in a dynamic range test, which is crazy, but there's some big caveats to it. So today we're going to dig through all of it. Hey everyone, I'm Cole Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by the Aperture Life for another video. This is fascinating. Now, before all of you with pitchforks come and try to rip me apart, let me state a couple disclaimers. One, I'm a huge fan of Hassleblad. It is my holy grail camera. I will own one day. Secondly, I want to say that dynamic range is not everything. There's a whole bunch of other things that go into what makes the Hassleblad image so special. And third, that there are some very particular settings in which the A7V does this, and I want to go over those with you. So first, a tiny bit of background for those of you that don't know. Dynamic range is how far into the brights and into the shadows simultaneously a sensor can see, that data can be recovered from. So when you're shooting into a very bright scene, how well can you recover those highlights and all the information is still there without being clipped? And in the darkest blacks and shadows, how much information is there that you can raise up out of the shadows without it being clipped and with an acceptable noise ratio. Now, the interesting thing about the Sony A7V is that Sony claimed 16 stops of dynamic range, which is wild. And we all knew that this was a bold claim, and every camera manufacturer specs their dynamic range higher than what the real world use case is, because there's always an acceptable level of noise that we're willing to deal with, and the manufacturer's dynamic range ratings usually don't account for this noise. It's just the total amount of information you can grab, but that's not necessarily the same as usable information. So it was very interesting when Sony said that the A7V had 16 stops of dynamic range in photo. We were waiting for some real world tests to see what's the real dynamic range. Is it actually a special camera? And there's a lot of people that, because it's a stacked sensors typically, historically, don't have the best dynamic range. So the fact that they were able to beat Hassleblad, the X2D2, in photo dynamic range with a stacked sensor full frame, man, it's pretty special. So let's get into a little bit of background. Bill Claff from Photons to Photos is the one that did this test. He's an electrical engineer. He's a scientist. He's not a YouTuber. He's not an influencer. He's not sponsored by anybody or affiliated with any company whatsoever. This is what he does. He tests dynamic range of cameras. Now, I'm going to reference some notes here quite a bit because there's a lot of information that I want to make sure that I get right for this. There's a lot of details and nuance to this. So Bill Claff tested the A7V as 12.47 stops of dynamic range, and his test of the Hassleblad X2D2 was 12.46 stops. Now, this is within a rounding error. They tested the same. On paper, it is 1/10 of a stop higher dynamic range. In real world, that means absolutely nothing. So this is technically a tie. But the fact that a full frame sensor of any kind is even capable of doing this is crazy, let alone a sensor as fast as the A7V that is partially stacked. Okay, now there are a couple things that are very interesting about this though, and the first one is that you only get this crazy dynamic range in mechanical shutter. As soon as you move to the electronic shutter, which is how you get 30 frames a second, it drops to 10.99, or basically 11 stops of dynamic range. So you lose a stop and a half of dynamic range when you're shooting on the electronic shutter at fast burst rates. Now, the other thing that's really important to this is this test is done at base ISO of 100. Now, it does show incredible dynamic range up to ISO 400, I believe, is what I'm seeing here. But this means that the A7V is probably going to be a monster camera for people who shoot like high dynamic scenes, outdoor, stills, automotive, or landscape photography, anything that can be done at base ISO with a slower shutter. I believe the mechanical shutter tops out at 10 frames per second, which is fast enough for just about anything, honestly. If you can shoot at or close to the base ISO in mechanical shutter on the A7V, you're going to have outstanding dynamic range performance. Now, while the A7V does still retain 14-bit in the burst mode at 30 frames per second, unlike the Canon R6 Mark III, which drops to 12-bit in their high frame burst mode. So it is a significant advantage over a lot of the competitors, even in burst mode. But this like mechanical shutter, base ISO, that's crazy. Now, there's a lot of differences between having the same dynamic range and it actually competing or beating something like the Hassleblad in image quality. I'm not trying to say that the A7V is going to beat or even match the Hassleblad X2D2 in image quality. I don't believe that for a second. There's so many things like the quality of glass that Hasslebllad's doing, the 100 megapixels that Hassleblad is doing, their color science, the fact that it's 16-bit color instead of 14-bit color. Like, there's an enormous amount of other things that go into what the Hassleblad does, and it's one of the reasons it's my holy grail camera. I will have one day. I will be doing videos on this channel with a Hassleblad one day. But as someone who has drooled over that, lusted after the Hassleblad thing for years and years now, the fact that the A7V, in at least one metric, is pushing us closer and closer to that incredible image quality, I think this is awesome. And I did not see this coming. I really didn't. In all my prediction videos about the A7V and everything that I said that I wanted out of it, I did not see it being this impressive in dynamic range, being part of it, especially because I knew it would have a partially stacked sensor because they had to fix the readout speed, the problems that the A7 IV has. Very quick video, super incredible news. Well done, Sony. It's a very impressive feat to have pulled this off on a full frame stacked sensor. I have a feeling that this is going to go down as one of the best image quality photo cameras in the mid-range tier that you can possibly buy. But time will tell as we start getting comparisons and actually comparing it to everything else. Let me know in the comments what you all think. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. If you made it this far into this video, I feel like I've earned your subscription. So thank you for being here. Don't forget to subscribe, drop me a comment, let me know what you think. And I have links down below for all my cameras, lenses, lights, microphones, literally everything I use, so go check those out. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.